Hey there. Today I want to talk about something a little bit crazy, a little bit nutty, but has served me massively over the years. It's about you creating a central intelligence agency, an internal board of directors, a team that you actually hold in your head to help you go ahead and create the results that you want. Today is about how to build your team, and I think you're going to love the craziness I'm about to share with you.
Cowboy.
Welcome to a daily dose of greatness class with your host, Trevor Crane, my daddy. He is going to help you take your life and business to the next level.
Here I come to save the day.
Trevor Crane here, 11-time #1 best-selling author and the founder of Epic Author Publishing, coming to you live every day so you can plug in every day to build your ideal business so you can live your ideal life.
If my daddy can do it, then anybody can do it because he's a weirdo.
You're supposed to make me sound cool.
All right, well, welcome back. So let me take you back a few years. This is even before I had filed my bankruptcy. So I filed my bankruptcy in 2009, and it was maybe 2007, 2005, something like that. Like life was not bad at this stage of my life, but I was doing some personal development work, and I was either learning from Napoleon Hill, and I was listening to one of his trainings or programs, or it was an Earl Nightingale Conant type training. And I don't remember exactly who it was, but they were talking about the concept of a mastermind and a board of directors. And there was a story that I heard, and I think it was Napoleon Hill, about how he created an internal board of directors. And he would oftentimes, like inside of his head, inside of his imagination, he would take time to actually go and he'd have this conversation with a board of directors that were a group of mentors and people that he respected and liked. And he would have a conversation with them and bring different ideas to them. And the idea was that I could do this as well. That was the challenge, to go ahead and create my own internal board of directors that I could bring my concepts to. Now, I learned this from a successful guy rather than me being really freaking crazy, but I just decided to do it. I'm crazy enough and coachable enough that I thought I can do this. And so that would be my challenge to you, is to take what I'm sharing with you today and actually use it, because this has served me over the years in really crazy ways. And I'll tell you the way that I've done it. So if you want to go ahead and create your own team, you can go ahead and do so in kind of a cool way. And when you're in a challenging situation, or you have a question and you're not sure who to call, I'll tell you how I've done this and how it served me really, really well. So let's see. So the first thing I did is I decided who I wanted on my team. And what I would challenge you to do is I just decided that I wanted people that I liked, that I looked up to, that were some of my mentors. And then I threw in people to the table, because this is my table. I call it my Central Intelligence Agency, my CIA, my Central Intelligence Agency. And I imagine them at this round table, like King Arthur in the King Arthur's round table. And it's a round table because nobody really leads or whatnot. But that said, what I decided also is that I needed a chairman of this group. And quite frankly, it wasn't going to be me. I wanted it to be one of my mentors. And so in my craziness, I went ahead and I put Tony Robbins at the end of one table, so to speak, and me at the other side. And so he became the chairman of my board of directors. And then I went as far as creating a little diagram, and I drew a circle on this big piece of paper, like those big stick-on paper, like the 3M paper that you can put on the wall. I use those all the time. And I drew a big circle, and I started putting names on the table, and I started creating this relationship between the different people. Like I put Tony and Sage side by side, and Sage is his wife, and she sat to his right. And then I put at the other like corners of the table, more of like the east and west side. It's a round table, so there weren't corners. But then I would put different people on like those that kind of like anchored the north, south, east, and west. And Tony was like north, I'm south. And then I put some buddies on the right or left hand side. And then I would create these different relationships. This is really nuts, but I decided that I mean, most of my group were married men and or women, and they typically had their significant other sitting side by side if I knew who it was. I've had Albert Einstein sitting at my table. I've had fictional characters like I am a real big Star Trek fan, and I really love the whole next generation thing. When I was going to school in college, Next Generation was actually a fresh season of Star Trek. When I was born in 1971, when I was born, my mother's water broke while she was watching a Star Trek episode, and then she decided to wait until the episode was over to go to the hospital. So I guess I grew up. I was born almost a Trekkie, but I'm not. I haven't been to a convention yet. I think that might be pretty cool, but I'm not that far gone, and I don't speak Klingon. But that said, I put Jean-Luc Picard, captain of the Enterprise in the Next Generation series, at the table. I read different novels, and I would sometimes put the author of those novels, or like I said, something as nuts as even Albert Einstein at the table. And what I'll do is when I'm in a situation where I want to get the advice of my mentors, because I study a lot of books and I watch a lot of videos, and I kind of know some of my mentors to a certain degree. I know what they believe, and they've talked to me a lot. Like I've chosen to call the mentors that I listen to on a regular basis and that I talk to, I consider them to be close friends of mine. And I know this sounds a little bit crazy, but what I will do is I'll bring my conversation to this table. And oftentimes the way that I do that, like I've tried to just pretend and sit there in silence and do this meditation thing and imagine the relationships going on, but I found it difficult. And as creative as I am, it was still just hard for me to hold the conversation. So what I started doing is I started calling Tony Robbins. And I would call him up, and that said, I don't have his personal cell phone number, and he hasn't said, Trevor, call me at any time, but I have pretended that he is on my speed dial. And I actually have I use a system called freeconferencing.com. I think they have a new system also called freeconferencecall.com. They have a whole series of stuff, but it's a free line that I can record my phone calls on. And so I'll call in there and put in a passcode. And what I do is I pretend to have the conversation with whatever my challenge is with one of my mentors. And typically I call Tony because he's the chairman at my round table. And then I have both sides of the conversation, and I do this out loud. So right now, like I'm walking, this is right before I do my exercise for the day. I'm going to go for a quick jog, and that's when I'm recording this. But at the time, I decided, or when I do this, I'll oftentimes do it before I go exercise or after or whatever, when I'm having a challenging situation. And then I have both sides of the conversation. And what it does is I pretend to be Tony Robbins with one voice. I pretend to be my voice with another. But I have to state my case. See, if I called up Tony for real, or any one of my mentors, who I would have to pay a pretty penny, right, to go ahead and get their attention, to go ahead and talk to them about whatever it is that is concerning me at the moment, or when I'm trying to make a big decision, you can imagine that I'd have to go ahead and be kind of intelligent about what I'm going to say. They don't want to hear my bullshit. They don't want to hear me whining and complaining. They want to know what's going on and then what I want from them. And so I've oftentimes gone to them when I have to make a big decision, or I'm in a situation where I feel like I did something stupid or made a mistake, or I'm just scared and I don't know who else to call. And then what I do is I have both sides of the conversation, and I will actually then speak and pretend to be the other people at the table. And just the other day I did this, and I threw out a question and an idea to Tony and to my Central Intelligence Agency. And I said, here's what I want. Here's the challenge I'm going through right now. And who has who's going to step up and say something? And the person who stepped up, like when I asked the question, it's kind of crazy because I know it's me talking to me. But what happens is I take on the insight and personality sometimes of some of my mentors, and I'm able to give myself some phenomenal advice and feedback and clarity. And I did this just the other day, and the person who stood up and talked to me was Garrett J. White. And Garrett J. White is running the Wake Up Warrior movement. You've heard me talk a lot about this lately because I've invested in spending some time with him and improving my life, both personally and professionally, and becoming a better businessman, a better husband, and you name it. And so I've been talking to Garrett, and he kind of has an angry, yelling, like he gets really emotional and passionate oftentimes. And he basically told me to shut the fuck up. And he challenged me in a lot of new ways that I wouldn't have normally done in my own tone or voice. And nor did Albert Einstein or freaking anybody else I have sitting at my tables. I've got one billionaire that I've met that has been a friend of mine that he sits at the table. Will Smith sits at my table. So I've got different people that are there to get their insight. And then sometimes I have this inner conversation between the people. I move them around like musical chairs sometimes to see what they have to contribute. And like if I have somebody I'm following in social media, I might bring them to the table. Or someone that I'm following who's going to give me some insight into leadership or relationship or money or whatever it is, I'll bring them to the table. And they may or may not actually contribute as in this crazy way. And I may or may not speak in their voice. But what I have found is that by having this out loud conversation, it can go ahead and guide me. And Garrett J. White was able to call me out on some things, and I got myself all fired up and excited and made new decisions. And the rest of the CIA, my CIA roundtable, I decided that that was the old name for this board of directors that I've created in my head. And what I wanted to do was create a new name for this group, and I now call it my War Room. I just joined a mastermind that's actually called War Room with Ryan Dyson, digital marketers, so that I could physically surround myself with an amazing team of people. But this is one that I'm just challenging you to do as a potentially a crazy person and put it in your head as well, because that's your growing team that you get to create. And who you hang out with is who you become. And Tony Robbins is one of my best friends. It doesn't mean I'm one of his best friends. It means that Tony's one of mine. And so are some of the people at this table, because I have a relationship with them, right? They may not have the best relationship with me. They hardly know me right now. But soon I plan on turning my friendships or acquaintances or whatnot into friendships with me, my mentors. And then my goal is to become a mentor with my mentors and walk with them and lead with them, if that makes sense. So I'm challenging you. I think it's a big challenge. I know it's a crazy challenge, but I figured I would share this with you. And I want to share with you a quote today. And I'm going to share with you a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, but also one that I've turned into like my Trevor Crane quote. Okay, so Ralph Waldo Emerson says, "Nothing great was ever achieved without, what did he say? Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm." And I would change that quote to saying, "Nothing great was ever achieved without a team." And so what you really need, I believe, is a team. And there's both the internal team that you can coach yourself in this crazy way that I have shared, or you can go ahead and invest. And that takes time, money, energy, and resources to invest in such a way where you find your mentors and you hire them, the professionals that are really good at what the creating results that you might want, and then do what they say they're going to do. So here's my question for you today. Here's the question of the day. Who would you like to have on your team as your board of directors to help advise you in your life and in your business? And then my challenge to you is to create it, to have a conversation with them. I don't care if you do it out loud. You don't have to do it into your phone. I will record these conversations like a complete butt-ass crazy person. And I don't know, I don't plan on ever doing anything with them. I just find that if I'm recording it, I take it more seriously and I don't second guess myself. And so I challenge you to also potentially draw a diagram like I did. I mean, I can only share with you what has worked for me. Now, this may or may not work for you, but try it out. See if it does work for you. I'll share with you one more thing about this that worked really well for me, and then I'm going to wrap this up. At one stage, and I think it was back in 2009, this is a year that I filed my bankruptcy. It was a year, actually, that I lost everything and I was feeling the low of the low. And this is also a year that I met my wife to be. And I met her at a time when I'd lost everything. And what I chose to do as soon as I found myself being attracted to her, and there was maybe a mutual attraction, is instead of giving her any lines of bullshit, I don't know, maybe I'd still gave her bullshit, but I told her authentically everything that was going on for me. I walked her out onto a balcony and I talked to her about how I'd lost everything. I told her about my 2-year-old daughter. I told her that I had just broken up with her mom and that now was not the time, the right time for me to meet a new woman or start a new relationship. And we talked on the phone and we flirted while we were together at that event. I actually met her at a Tony Robbins event. We were both volunteering. And we never kissed at that event. We stayed in touch and we had a phone conversation for 2 months until we had our first date. And see, I had gone through a series of different relationships, and I just been in love with a woman, and we had a baby together. And when I lost that relationship, and I lost all my money, and I lost my self-confidence, and lost my sense of self-worth, and I had been bouncing from relationship to relationship. I called myself a serial monogamist. Like, I go from one amazing girlfriend relationship to the next amazing girlfriend relationship, and then I stay in the relationship too fucking long, and like it would eventually collapse. And when I started dating Robin, I didn't want it to be the same thing. I didn't want to date another amazing, beautiful, intelligent woman. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to find the woman I was meant to be with for the rest of my life. And I didn't. And I also had this vision of me being a little bit of a player, and it was time for me to play the field with bullshit, as if I was ever going to be a player. But at any rate, I was a little bit self-conscious. I was definitely scared. I didn't want to try another relationship that failed. And so the truth is she was wanting me to commit in our relationship. We had just started dating, or maybe we were a few months in, or 6 months in, or whatever it was. And we had a conversation that was going to break us up. I was pissed off. She was thinking of going on another date with another dude. And maybe she even went on another date with a guy. I think she did. Yeah. And I was pissed. And I was going to call it off. I was going to break up with her. But as I was really emotional about it, what I did is I had this conversation, and I took it to Tony. I took it to my chairman. I brought it to my board of directors. And on this day, the only person that talked to me was Tony. And instead of bitching and whining and complaining and calling my friend or calling my buddy or calling my mom and talking to her about what's going on, I talked to Tony. And I had to frame the question and the problem in such a way that actually made sense. I've actually had a real conversation with Tony. And I don't remember exactly what he said to me on this day. And by the way, if I still had these conversations with Tony or my new War Room board of directors on a regular basis, I'll talk to Robin and my friends and stuff, and I will talk as though I just had a conversation with Tony Robbins or anybody else that lives on my board of directors team. And so they oftentimes figure out, okay, he's just this crazy person, and that's what he thinks. But I have the conversation on both sides, depending on the mentor. And in this case, Tony just asked me questions, and he asked me questions about basically what I was scared of most. And long story short, is he told me what a fucking dipshit I was being about leaving or potentially losing the best thing that I had going for me. And he challenged me to go look at the journal entry that I had made years before. And while I was traveling and homeless, I was freaking homeless at this time. I had no place to live. I was staying at a buddy's house on his couch. And apparently I brought my journals with me. I didn't even remember this at the time. But Tony brought it up. He goes, go read in your journals. He said, go discover who was the man that you said you wanted to become so you could attract the woman that you could go ahead and be with for the rest of your life, and describe her. So I went and I looked in my journal, and I read my own words that I had written years before that basically described my wife to a T. And so this board of directors, this internal central intelligence agency, I'm now choosing to call it my war room, my board of directors, has saved my ass and basically saved my relationship with my wife. And I couldn't be happier with the woman that I'm with today and the life that we have together. And I just count myself lucky as hell that I had created this complete crazy internal central intelligence agency to serve me. So my challenge to you today is to actually do this shit, to take some version of it and take some application. You don't have to go completely nuts with it, but do this. Take the part that you can implement and do it right away. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to get it started. Who do you want to be on your team? It can be anybody. It can be anybody that you want on your team, and put them at your own board of directors table and try to have a conversation with them. If you want to quietly meditate, if you want to talk out loud, if you want to get a free account over at free conferencing or free conference call or whatever.com, you can. But then if you would, then I'm going to do one more thing, because I think this is kind of nuts. I'd be very curious to hear if this has any kind of positive effect for you. I've shared this with a few people on a few different in a few different places. I've never really shared it this publicly and done it in a public broadcast like this one. It's the main focus of the podcast. And this is a long one, but it's something that has helped me a lot, and I hope that it helps you too. And you don't write me off as being a complete psychopath. Make today magnificent, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
To get even more awesomeness, which means all my best stuff, download my app by texting Trevor to 36260. It will show up right on your cell phone. Just text message the word Trevor to 36260. Talk to you soon.